high basketball court in North English, Iowa in 1970. And he's done a great job as the Executive Director of Business and Community Services at the University of Northern Iowa. It's my pleasure to welcome Randy Pilkington to the committee. His office has provided integrated approaches to meeting the needs of businesses, entrepreneurs, and communities throughout the state of Iowa in his special capacity, assisting small businesses all over the state through the University of Northern Iowa. Welcome, Randy.
Thank you, Chairman Braley and Ranking Member Davis, for inviting me here today to talk to you about some of the disaster recovery. My role at the University of Northern Iowa is in Business and Community Services. That's an umbrella group for all of our economic development, small business assistance, and tech transfer programs. After the floods and the tornado in Parkersburg, we immediately started to work with some of our business and community services programs, dedicating literally hundreds, if not thousands of hours over the summer, over the last 4 months. Through on-site meetings with businesses, through one-on-one counseling, and through at least 1,000 phone calls, we estimate that 1,200 small businesses were impacted just in our part of Northeast Iowa. And that's just in the 1st District. Really, it's one county around Blackhawk. So 1,200 small businesses that were impacted during that time. The focus of my presentation really relates to those companies, even though I think by the presentations today, it's reflective of what happened throughout all of Eastern Iowa. In the short-term recovery process, there were critical financial needs right away within the first 30 days after the floods receded. There were mortgage payments that were still due, or lease payments that were still due. There was payroll to meet. There were utility bills that were still due for our small businesses, and I think you captured that. Some of the smallest companies probably suffered the most. And they had layoffs, they had delinquencies in their payments to their commercial loans. And keep in mind, many of these individuals also suffered personally. They had floods or lost their home in a tornado. So the business people not only lost their businesses, but they were dealing with these disasters in their personal life as well. Longer term, the reopening of many of those businesses is still in limbo. Unfortunately, many of our small businesses, especially those smallest businesses, are waiting for some type of word from the state or from Congress on what help can come, because the help that's been offered so far is unacceptable to them and won't put them back into business. Those businesses that went back into business right away had the wherewithal to do so because they had cash flow, or they were larger or had assets. So they put an alternative plan quickly, as Mr. Tolley did, to find an alternative location to quickly get back into processing or get back into business or whatever their business might be. But really, there were very few companies that did that. The smaller firms, those with fewer than 10 employees, we estimate that more than 50% are still not back in business in our area alone. So what worked well? Well, first of all, there was very good coordination and communication between federal, state, and local leadership. That worked very well. Good communication between the SBA, our small business development centers, and our local economic developers. So that communication line was open and frequently happened. At the risk of sounding like I'm tooting our own horn, we had a program that worked very well at the University of Northern Iowa called MyEntrenet. MyEntrenet is an entrepreneurship delivery system that puts entrepreneurs in touch with the information they need, the capital they need, and the resources they need in a quick basis. We touched about 700 out of those 1,200 businesses within the first 30 days after the disaster, learning more about what their needs were. And because of MyEntrenet, we were able to deal with these entrepreneurs faster and to find out what services and products really were working and what improvements were needed. We had a very good working experience with the SBA staff. The SBA staff were on the ground after the tornado and after the floods, almost immediately working with businesses. Unfortunately, the products they had to offer were not what the businesses wanted. They found themselves standing in front of angry crowds of businesses offering a debt tool, a debt structure, a loan, when in fact what these companies needed was something completely different. Therefore, it was quite the struggle. And I know my focus is to be on SBA, but I just want to say a couple sentences about FEMA. While the FEMA staff were good people, even in the first disaster in Parkersburg, within the first week they were transferred out. It became a transient group of individuals working with these communities and businesses. Led to miscommunication, misinformation, missed meetings, and ultimately call the 800 number. Very angry small businesses, and as we put this all together and look at the summary. Quite a bit different in the attitude toward the SBA. They were very helpful. It was just the product that was not sufficient. But in order to meet the needs locally, a Cedar Falls banker went ahead and created a 30-year mortgage, or a 30-year term on a 2.5% loan for $25,000, very patient capital. So we had a private banker taking the risk that we really thought should have been taken by the SBA. So what is needed as we move forward? Well, first of all, 80% of the small businesses in our disaster-declared counties in Iowa have fewer than 10 employees. And they muddied through the summer, and here's, in summary, the three things that they ask for. Number one is a non-collateralized, forgivable capital. This doesn't have to be a large amount of money, but they need it immediately. They need it right after the disaster occurs in that $25,000 to $30,000 range. They need one-on-one time to talk to business professionals, that technical assistance they need that can put them back in business and lead them to the resources they need. They get really tired of getting bounced from person to person. And they need acknowledgement that their small business is as valued as those larger companies, many of which have already received state or local incentives and are back in business. Those are the three items if we summarize all the 700 businesses we've talked to. That's a little simplified, but I think if you came up with that first one, with that forgivable, non-collateralized capital, you could keep a lot of these small businesses in business. And most of all, I think we need to change our focus and not expect all businesses to reopen. We cannot expect them all to reopen, but at the same time, we have to offer them an opportunity to reposition themselves in an entrepreneurial market and with economic assistance of some type. Thank you.
Thank you.